Hey, welcome to The Explainer. There's this symbol that's kind of hiding in plain sight. It stands tall in some of the most famous cities on Earth, the obelisk. And let me tell you, its journey through history, it's way more dramatic and a lot more mysterious than you'd ever guess.
All right, let's get right into it. Now, our story doesn't start in some dusty old history book or a quiet museum. Nope, we're starting on a stormy sea back in the 19th century with a piece of cargo that was incredibly ancient and, well, incredibly precious.
So, I want you to picture this. It's a dark, cold night in January 1878. There's a ship sailing out of Alexandria, Egypt, and it's carrying just one thing, a massive, single stone pillar. Then, out of nowhere, the sky just opens up and the sea absolutely erupts.
And this storm is just brutal. We're talking waves like mountains crashing over the deck. It's total chaos, and tragically, a lot of the crew, they're swept overboard, just lost to the waves.
But here's the crazy part. That one stone pillar, it stays put. It completely survives the storm. It's almost as if, and this is what our source suggests, some kind of unseen force was making sure it didn't go anywhere. Okay, so fast forward a few months. This ship finally limps into New York Harbor, and waiting there on the dock is a group of really mysterious figures. They're all dressed in black robes, and they're just watching, with these little smiles on their faces as their ancient cargo is finally brought ashore.
So you gotta ask, right? What was this thing? What was this stone obelisk that was so important it would survive a killer storm and then be met by a secret welcoming committee? What's the big deal?
Well, to figure that out, we need to go way, way back. I'm talking thousands of years back, all the way to its home in ancient Egypt.
First things first, what even is an obelisk? Well, it's basically a tall, four-sided pillar that's carved from a single piece of stone, and it gets narrower as it goes up, ending in this little pyramid shape right at the top. The ancient Greeks actually thought it looked like a nail or a skewer, so they called it an obeliskos, which means, you guessed it, little nail.
But believe me, to the Egyptians, this was way more than just a big stone nail. It was a deeply sacred object. It was all about connecting with their most powerful god, the sun god Amun-Ra. See, they believed that point to tip literally pierced the clouds, bringing the sun's energy down to earth. It was also a symbol of rebirth and new life, which is why you'd see them in cemeteries. And get this, pharaohs would have their names carved right into the stone because they believed it would basically guarantee they'd live forever. And we're not talking about some little garden statue here. The oldest one we still have today, built by a pharaoh named Sosostris I, it weighs 120 metric tons. That's insane. Think about the engineering it would take to carve that from one piece of rock and then get it standing upright. Honestly, it's mind-blowing even by today's standards.
Okay, so from there, this super sacred Egyptian symbol starts a whole new journey. It begins to travel the world, but not as something to be worshipped. Oh no, it becomes a spoil of war, a trophy for conquering empires. And this is where you can really see how the meaning of the obelisk just completely transforms over time. So it starts in Egypt, right, purely sacred. Then around 600 BC, the Assyrians start using them to basically brag about their conquests. Fast forward to the Romans, emperors like Augustus literally dragged them all the way to Rome as the ultimate "we conquered Egypt" trophy. Then in the 16th century, the popes start putting them in the middle of major Christian squares. And finally, by the 19th century, they're the grand monuments we see in places like Paris, London, and of course, New York.
But here's where it gets really interesting. That public history, the story of conquest and glory, that's not the whole picture. According to the source we're digging into, there's a totally different story, a secret history. And in this version, the obelisk is a symbol of something else entirely, rebellion.
Yeah, the source we're looking at makes a pretty bold claim. It says that these obelisks are, and I'm quoting here, a symbol to declare rebellion against God and to express satanic power. Whoa! This viewpoint links them all the way back to the Tower of Babel from the Bible, the ultimate symbol of humanity defying God.
So how do they get there? Well, from this perspective, here's the supposed family tree of the symbol. It starts with the Egyptian sun god, Amun-Ra. The argument is that Amun-Ra is basically the same deity as Baal, an idol that was worshipped in nearby Canaan. And from there, Baal supposedly morphs into Baphomet, that goat-headed figure that's often linked to secret societies like the Knights Templar and the Freemasons. So the takeaway from this viewpoint is huge. It completely recasts these monuments. They're not just history. They're supposedly powerful occult symbols, maybe even channels for cosmic energy. And the source points the finger directly at 19th century Freemasons. Remember those guys in black robes from the beginning?
for spreading these obelisks all over the globe, with the Washington Monument being the most famous modern example of all.
Now, this whole interpretation creates this incredible clash of symbols, especially when you see that a pillar that looks almost exactly the same in a different part of the world has the complete opposite meaning.
So, let's go to Mecca. During the annual Hajj pilgrimage, there's a pillar that honestly looks a whole lot like an obelisk. It's called the Jamarats.
But what it stands for could not be more different. The Jamarat pillar actually represents Satan. The story goes that the devil tried to tempt the prophet Abraham away from following God's command. And what did Abraham do? He threw stones at him to drive him away. So to this day, millions of pilgrims reenact that very moment. They throw stones at the pillar in this really powerful ritual that's all about rejecting evil and strengthening their faith in God.
And that's the absolute contrast right there. It's stunning. In one world capital, Washington, D.C., you have an obelisk that's revered, a symbol of national pride and power. And in another holy city, Mecca, you have a structure that looks almost identical, and it's seen as the embodiment of evil, something to be literally stoned and rejected.
So, all of this leaves us with a really big question, right? Can a symbol ever truly escape its past? Is an ancient pillar just a cool piece of architecture, or does its original meaning, whether it was sacred or political, or maybe, as some claim, something darker, does that meaning travel with it across time? It's definitely something to think about the next time you see one of these things pointing up at the sky.